welcome. Welcome to In-House Connect's Humans of Legaltech, where we discover the stories of the founders of the legal tech that is powering today's legal departments. I'm thrilled to have on with us today Sam Kidd, the co-founder and CEO of LawVu, the first truly connected software platform for in-house legal teams. Folks, I'm sure many of you have attended our wonderful webinars, so we're going to do this a little bit differently. You're more than welcome to network and engage in the chat. Feel free to network. Feel free to drop questions or comments. I'm going to have a wonderful chat with Sam. I'm curious to learn more about him and his background, and then we'll talk about LawVu and have a demo, and then we'll have a Q&A. So I'm going to get right to it, but feel free to engage in that chat box as you normally would. Sam, welcome to In-House Connect. It's great to have you on today.
Thanks, Shai. It's awesome to be here.
All right. Let's start at the beginning. Is it true that you never went to law school or ever practiced law?
That is true. Yeah, I know. So how does a non-lawyer end up founding a legal ops business? Yeah, like, to be honest, it was probably not the path I thought I was going to go down when I started. But how I got here is I had another company. I was part of another company before in the kind of the project management space, and was there for a while. I sold out of that, and that was during that process was my first time I got to really deal and engage with lawyers, and I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. I thought the whole process was incredibly bizarre. It wasn't transparent. I had no communication about what was happening, and so one thing led to another. I was based in Ireland. I kind of moved back to New Zealand, and I couldn't kind of shake the feeling that, how can I take what I kind of learned through this project management world, and how do I bring this through into legal and kind of educate myself and how to engage with lawyers and that whole process. So it was really kind of around scratching a personal itch, and one thing led to another. Started working and talking to a number of corporate legal teams here in the local government space. So these were teams that were kind of 2 to 5 folks, and I was really helping them with their process around just the way they engage with each other, how they engage with the law firms that they dealt with. And it was everything that I'd done before. It was all the business processes. It was just communication. It was having all that sort of come back to you. It was building a technology platform that would allow them to do that, because they were sitting there with Word and Outlook and Excel. That was kind of the tech stack for the legal team. I thought, well, this is bizarre. There's a lot we can kind of do to help here. And I suppose because I didn't have a legal background, I also asked a lot of dumb questions. The why. I just kept asking why. And you start to realize that no one can really explain why. It's just because we've always done this before. And that doesn't necessarily mean it's the right way to kind of continue. And so help with a number of teams there around really streamlining their process, and at the same time started to look offshore and see what was happening in the US and the UK, and realized that for those sort of mid-market teams, there was really nothing. And unless you're a team of 200, 300, 400, and you had kind of an enterprise system, the smaller teams just were really operating on the Microsoft suite. And so spent a bit of time heading across to conferences, obviously discovered legal ops was becoming a thing. This was sort of back in 2018, and got to speak to a lot of people, and the way that we were tackling the problem was unique, and it sort of piqued the interest of a number of folks, because at that time there was there's a lot of like spend management, and then there was a lot of contract management, but no one was looking holistically across how a legal team actually functions from start to kind of finish. And that was really my background. And so we started to kind of build it up, just kept talking to more and more legal teams. And yeah, then sort of turn around and be like, okay, I think this is becoming a thing.
So I want to go back for a second. So did you say you sold, like you're working at a company, or like you had your own company?
Yeah, I was part of one of the early founders of an online project management company. So when I sold that back to the other couple of founders there, and that was all in the online project management space. That was back when sort of SaaS was really becoming a thing back in kind of 2007. So I was there for close to 10 years.
So you created your own project management company, you sold out of that, and I guess in the process you worked with lawyers to effectuate the sale of your shares, of your interests.
Correct.
And you were like, this is so disorganized and disjointed. There's got to be a better way to track things. And, you probably felt lost in the process.
And to be honest, I actually just had no idea how to instruct. lawyers, like what does that process even look like? So at the start, it was really around, imagine if I could engage with legal and I could just get a task list, or just know I want to do a share sale. These are the things you need to look at. So there's some things that you could do yourself, there's some things that you pass out to a law firm. And so that was kind of the early inception of the idea. And then I think I started to realize quite early on, most disruption in any market really comes from the client side of the transaction. And who are the biggest clients in legal, or the drivers of those? In-house legal. Like in-house legal makes or breaks big law firms. Like if they decide to spend their dollars somewhere else, that big law firm is no longer a big law firm. And so they in-house legal really controls legal globally. And so that's where I kind of wanted to play, because realizing that they could, the different motivators and drivers, like it's really about business efficiencies. They're looking at doing things differently. It wasn't about time and material. It's about how do they get stuff done, and how do they affect change, and how they just become effective inside an organization. So that all kind of really resonated with me.
Gotcha. So after, I guess, you effectuated the sale, talk to me about like how you approached legal departments. It sounds like you did some fact investigation, you kind of picked their brains, you learned about their processes. Is that pretty much what happened?
Yeah, well, it was really just, I was trying to kill the idea. I think that when you leave a company that's been successful, and I've always kind of had or been involved in my own sort of companies, the starting into something new is terrifying. And so I was just trying to kill the idea the whole time, being like, is this really a thing? So I sort of started it like, the in-house teams want to see dashboards. Is it all about reporting? And so like, how do we build reports? And then that kind of wasn't a thing, but it was just the process flow. And so it was hard when you're trying to land on like, what is the killer feature here? But we realized it was just the communication. So how do you have any effective team? So if you look at the way sales runs, that like they'll use Salesforce, look at HR's got their system, IT has their system, and you step into legal, and everyone's like, legal's got Outlook and whatever hand-me-down tools they get from the rest of the organization. So then they didn't, most in-house legal teams don't have their own kit that they sit down like, this is what we start, this is best practice, this is how we operate as a team. And so that's what we're looking at building, is like, how do we build the best legal operating system for corporate legal teams to just get stuff done and actually communicate with the business and make it easier for the rest of the organization. So if I was sitting inside the organization and I wasn't engaging with the legal team before, how do we make that easy? So I don't know what I don't know, but then we break down barriers. So now it's easy to send instructions to the legal team, because you're kind of given the intake, which really kind of guides people through that process, because you'll have your heavy hitters that are always engaging with legal, and then you have your people that may engage with legal once or twice in their professional career. But those are things that you want to make sure comes through into legal and doesn't get bypassed, or doesn't just end up in an inbox somewhere. I think those are the conversations when we started kind of digging in with legal teams that we realized like they were struggling, especially with just the triaging of work. And it's just the work is so varied. It's not just contracts. It's not just engaged with outside law firms. It's HR issues. It's requests through for marketing. It's IP. It's litigation stuff. It's just the work for in-house legal is just so varied, and yet it was basically operating with nothing.
So I guess your experience at your like former company as a project management, right? As a project management company,
Yeah.
helped you, right? You had all this knowledge and training to kind of tackle this problem for in-house legal teams.
100%. So like when we first came in, we started talking to people about this. There was a whole lot of, oh no, you can't do this because legal is very complicated. It's always different. But because I couldn't understand all the legalese and where it was going, but the process was the same. Like the starting process, what happened, the flow of work identical. And whether we're dealing with a company in Australia, we're dealing with a company in the UK or US, the workflow is like for like. And that was really what people are struggling with, is just the workflow management. So it is like, just how does work come into the legal team? How do they triage that work? How do they send that out? How do they find files later on? How do they report on emails if they're briefing it out to external law firms? How do they get all the invoicing back? So like, it's all the one process. Yet for some reason, legal teams, we've just siloed it into individual products, which then means that someone then needs to tie it all together, and you're doing different sort of things. Whether for me, it all just felt part of the same workflow. And so for us, it was like, okay, how do we just streamline this and just take hopefully a lot of administrative work off the plate of in-house legal teams? Because I haven't met many in-house lawyers that have an abundance of extra time out there, that they're always under-resourced, under the pump, so much to do. And so we're trying to look at how do we alleviate some of that burden.
Got it. So when did you, I guess, just I want to like kind of take a closer look at like how you actually got started. Like, how did you find legal teams to even talk to and run your thesis by them? And then when did you like realize that you had, that there was an opportunity there? Like, well, who was like the first, in-house lawyer you spoke to about this?
Yeah, it was a woman who was head of the local city council here. And so we just had an in to get in and chat to her and sat with Michelle, and then she sat at her desk and kind of just walked through the process. I remember asking her like to show us the process of sending work out to external law firm, and she's like, "Oh, it's no issue. We have the instruction here. We just download the Word template. We fill this in. We send the Word template off to the law firm. They fill that in. They send that back to us. If it's too much, we might print it out and scan it in again, and then we send that off to finance to get the budget approved. Then it comes back." I was like, "Oh my god! Like you could just do this with one click. Like, this is just a one-click sort of process." And it's like, and it was all these things that just become normalized. And so we started talking to them and kind of building a process around that. I use LinkedIn a lot to reach out to folks. So one of our founding team was another lawyer in another government department, Sean Plant. So we went across and chatted to him. And he'd actually, I always say he was a normal person before he became a lawyer. He was an engineer, then he became a lawyer. So like he was a really interesting mix to kind of bring in, because he kind of had both sides with his engineering background and then working in corporate legal for a while. So we got to kind of pick his brain for ages and kind of ask him, like, are we mad? Does this sound like this should be a thing? And then just researching online and came across a number of conferences in the legal ops space. And it was getting across and finding the right conferences to actually talk to people. And that was back in 2018. And then 2018 was the first time I attended Clock as well. So we did Consero, which was nice because it's kind of like small, intimate one-on-one like meetings. And so really got to investigate and kind of dig in and ask people the questions and find out where they were having issues. And then again, went to Clock and just spent a huge amount of time just talking. I suppose it's the nice thing about when you rock into the US with a slightly weird accent. We stood out. I remember we were the only group in t-shirts as well. So back then, like Clock was quite suited and booted. Like it was all the incumbents there. It was very like corporate legal. And like you roll into, I was just back from Clock a couple of weeks ago, and it's amazing how that's really like a tech event now. It feels like any other tech event that I would have attended before. So there's been a massive shift over the last number of years.
Definitely. So you guys, did you get a booth, a table at Clock, or you just walked around?
No, we ended up sharing rooms. Like it was, yeah, super bootstrapped. And then we're staying in the Bellagio, and the prices of everything. I think at one stage we were trying to avoid touching anything. It's going to cost us money, and end up sitting in the room at the end, drinking the nice Fiji water that was there, and realizing that I just drank $80 worth of water. So for a startup, that was a little bit painful, but thankfully I continued to keep going.
That's awesome. What was the MVP of LawVu? Like, what was the minimum viable product? And what's behind, why did you choose the name LawVu? Like, what was the inspiration there?
Yeah, so LawVu was easy. Tim had kind of gone through his co-founder and picked names. We just wanted something short, and we could have the .com on it, and everything else on legal seemed to be Lex something. So we wanted to stay away from that. And the idea was that we were giving people a better view into their legal work. And the VAEW was taken, and we thought VU just looked nicer. It was nice and short. The logo stands out. It's punchy. It's it's only 5 letters. So that was actually weirdly one of the easiest decisions that we made. The MVP was harder, to be honest, because legal is not the sort of place that enjoys startups and products that are kind of half baked. And so there was a lot of time between kind of putting a paper product in front of someone and then kind of building the first iteration. And the first iteration was really around matter management. So for us, it was like, how do you just send work out? How do you have that come back in? How does the team collaborate with each other with tasks and milestones and things like that? And then we slowly kind of added in milestones and contract management. But we were basically kind of 3 years really building the product with very few customers and sort of pilot users, because we just knew we weren't in a place that we could kind of sell this into larger organizations. We had to do all the fun stuff like become ISO certified, SOC 1, SOC 2, all the compliance stuff that you don't want to do when you're a small startup. But that sort of becomes table stakes to get into organizations. Like we handle some of the most sensitive information inside a company. So it's very hard to just, I think, create a legal tech company and be like, just land in the morning. Like you need credibility, you need the security and posture there. So it does take a long time to kind of get there. And for us, we had to just take the time building out the product to make sure it was robust. And so it was probably, 3 years of really like head down, grinding away, working closely with a small cohort of users that we're able to build relationships with. And then once we kind of got to a point to actually kind of go a bit bigger and move into some of the larger organizations.
So we started off with matter management, and then 3 years of tweaking and refining. What was the like tipping point for you, like for LawVu, where it went from kind of a startup to, okay, we have product market fit, we are, we can really make an impact. Like, talk me through how you view that.
Yeah, like there was always some carrot that kind of kept us going. Like we struck kind of a global deal with PwC, who liked what we were doing in the new law world, and so they were sort of validated us as an actual product, which we were super early. We had a couple of kind of core users in New Zealand and then Australia, and then we won a global RFP where we kind of went up against all the incumbents to win Telstra, which was a legal team of 250 odd. So we're used to dealing with legal teams of between sort of 5 and 10, and then we won that, and that was a little bit of an oh shit moment for us, because it's like, okay, now this is a massive organization, massive legal team. How do we actually kind of help them kind of run that process? And so that they became kind of like a marquee client for us, and it built trust inside the community that if we could service a team that size, well, then we could end up actually looking after kind of teams of 30, 40, 50. So that was a bit of a tipping point, and that allowed us to bring some funding on board, and then kind of just keep pushing harder into the US. And again, through all the conferences and attending, we just picked up a couple of US clients and then worked incredibly hard with them, and they became reference clients. And I think we've always worked on the premise that if you do right by your customers, they'll refer you in. And so we spend a lot of time, and we still do, it's baked into the way that we operate, is to make sure that when we look after our customers, we get them up and running, and we get a lot of referrals into other companies now.
That's great. So I guess let's talk about LawVu now. So it started off with matter management. It sounds like there's contract management or CLM component. How have you grown from like MVP to where you are today? And then I want to talk about the different, legal departments that you service.
Yeah. So for us, we're matter management, which is just like matter is kind of a loaded word in some ways. It depends on kind of where your background's come from. I mentioned that to the other day. People often think of matter management as just work they send to external law firms, whether for us, a matter could be anything from like a small request that comes through from marketing that you turn around in 10 minutes, or something that's an HR issue, or it could turn into a big piece of litigation that you brief out to external counsel. So that is what I would have called project management. So that's the management of the workload, that is the files, the documents, the emails, the conversations, the people that are on the work. Now there could be contracts involved in that, and they could sit inside the file section, or you'd spin up our CLM module, and the CLM module really allows you to manage all the obligations, all the key dates, and just gives you a different view for viewing kind of contracts. But a contract can be nested into a matter, so that way you can look at a matter as like a top level folder that you'd have, and then you may have a whole lot of executed documents, and they're all interlinked and related, which actually starts to become really useful for companies where they're doing kind of more complex work. And then some of that work may be briefed external. And so for us, you can actually bring law firms into the mix where they can actually collaborate with you. So this was the kind of project management component. Everyone was kind of siloed, but what happens if you can bring the law firms in, and then they can collaborate with you on the documents and the workload and the tasks, and you can divvy up work between them. So that was there. And then I always kind of mention that we're sort of like legal hippies. Everyone should, get together and work and collaborate together. And some people didn't see things that way. So like, well, we're going to keep law firms over there. So we just want the invoices to come through. So then we just allow for the billing. So you can track the billing against that without bringing the law firms in. And then you've got all this cool data now. But, how do you actually report on that? So our insights platform, which is the advanced analytics, and that's really helping legal teams to identify opportunity to really look at the workload that they have there, see where they have risks, and working with legal teams as to like how do you distinguish yourself as a high performing legal function or legal team? Like there's kind of standard metrics for sales, the standard metrics for HR. There still isn't really standard metrics for legal. And so we really work with teams like, how do you know that you're performing well? And then how do you take that information and report that up to C-suite. And that's what we spend a lot of time working with teams on, because legal at the moment still has a lot of stories, but not a huge amount of data to kind of bring into the mix. And so I think a big component of that now is obviously the rise of AI. It's really driving that desire from C-suite to be able to dig into all areas and all departments inside the organization. And at the moment, like sales got a huge amount of information and data, HR it's got a huge amount, products got a lot, and legal is still really hard. Like, how do you kind of pull that together? And so we've spent a lot over the last sort of 18 months really helping teams to actually, okay, this is how we collate all your data. This is how we're going to be able to pipe it into your COO, who's going to be able to then run AI kind of requests across that, and you'll become part of the puzzle. Because I look at a lot of legal teams, they're some of the largest collectors of information and data inside an organization, but sadly the largest incinerator of information as well, where a lot comes in, but they don't really know how to collect and store and report on it. And so we're trying to look at how do we unlock that for teams.
So one more question, and then I want to see, LawVu in action, and we'll invite Patrick on. But one more question. LawVu says that they're the first truly connected software platform for in-house legal teams. Like, what does that mean? Is that, you're connecting everybody in the legal team, you're connecting outside counsel, you're connecting the business to legal? Like, talk about that.
Yeah, it's sort of all of those. I think the biggest part is that all the modules that we sort of talk about, it's all one workflow. Yet in a lot of organizations, you'll have, like they said, you'll have your e-billing platform that is a different technology stack with a different vendor. You'll then have CLM that belongs to another vendor. You may then do intake and triaging through another vendor. And it's someone's job. How do you couple all those together? And that becomes a huge body of work for folks. So we're getting a lot more people coming out to us now being like, we just need an all-in-one system, which is also a term I hate, because sort of all-in-one kind of master of none. But again, it's just in our minds that it's different workflows, because that's the way the company's been structured. Whether a work coming through, whether it's a file, whether it's a contract, it doesn't really matter. It's just the way that we organize it in our brain, and it's the way we organize it inside the system. So that's what I mean. Your contracts will sit embedded in your matters. That matter, which may have started as internal, you actually want to brief that external. But it's all the same body of work. You just have the ability to now send that work external and have it come through. So everything's interconnected that way. You're not having to pull data in and out of different platforms, different systems. But then for us, it's like, how do we also play nicely with the rest of the stack? So we're deeply integrated into the Microsoft ecosystem. So into Word, into Outlook, into Power Platform, into DocuSign, Adobe Sign for your signing tools. We've got integrations into Worksheet Compare. We're integrating into some of the AI redlining tools at the moment, like Black Boiler. So everyone starts living inside the platform, just as you do for sales teams. Like Salesforce is like, sales has all of this. Why does legal not have a comparable product? Well, they do now.
They do now. Awesome. So I want to invite Patrick Kelly on. Patrick is the Director of Channel Partnerships at LawVu. Hi, Patrick. Good to see you again. And if you wouldn't mind, spin up, I guess, of LawVu. And I'm going to pepper in questions. And folks, if you have questions, put them in the chat, and I'll take it from there.
Thanks, Shai. I appreciate it. And this is actually an excellent format to dive into a demo too, because so much of what we usually tee up has just been naturally discussed between you and Sam. So right now, what I'm showing you all is what we call our hub within the LawVu legal workspace. And so, to further that point of, well, what is our workspace? It really is where the in-house team can come and get their work done efficiently. So what I'm showing you right now, I have my recent work. The little briefcase will indicate a matter I was recently working on. The little squiggly line will indicate a contract. So the idea is that you log off at 5 p.m., you get on at 9 a.m. the next morning. I can easily go and grab what I was working on, what was in flight. If I move down here, action items, I can quickly go if I need to just clean up my queue of things I need to do. You notice I have invoices I need to approve. I have contracts I need to approve. Obviously, I'm not very good at doing this because the backlog is voluminous, but I could go ahead and quickly kind of get this done. Also, matters waiting on acceptance. So I'm going to show you our legal front door, our intake experience. So, triaging a matter from intake, you need to accept that. Status updates as well. So think of your business user will want a status update. What's going on with this? Provide me an ETA. So quickly get those there. We have a planner, so I can see everything that's going on this month from let's say, an obligations from contracts perspective, from matters and due dates on matters perspective, also tasks. So, Sam referenced that project management component. There's definitely a big flavor of that in LawVu. Tasks are a component of matters. So surfacing up those tasks due dates. This will open up into a full screen. And it's also, we have a one-way integration with Outlook and G Calendar, so you can get all that data populated on your productivity calendars as well. Files, I think it's really important to note, being a matter-centric and a contract-centric tool, those files are going to live underneath those matters and contracts, but we want to reduce the number of clicks. So that means that anything you recently accessed, I could just go grab that document directly from the screen. As I hovered on down, you're going to notice basically what I've done is surfaced up my favorite reports. I'm not going to get into them now. I'm going to save it for a few minutes down the road, but understand that I'm going to show you our reporting story as well. Those reports can live directly on this hub. That being said, now what I'd like to do is kind of shift and talk about intake. So first talk about it just from an internal own creation perspective, just from the legal team, and then I'll also shift from your business stakeholders, how they can actually request to you through our portal as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shift to Outlook, because people really buy into us for our productivity tools. So Outlook integration, we also have the same for G Suite. So for Gmail, SharePoint integration, Teams integration, Word plugin, people really want you to meet them where they're also working at. I am in the 365 online version. Understand that this works exactly the same in your desktop version. I'm sure you're all using. It's just easier for me to pull this up. The idea with this widget, though, is I get an email and I want it to actually spin up a matter. We have a widget I can access in the platform. What you can do is you can create matters from this. You can also create contracts. What this is actually going to do is it's going to spin up all of your matter templates that you have created. So essentially what I can do is I can select from a drop down, I can go and I can grab this employment template, I can fill out some fields that I need to create, and then boom, that matter is created within LawVu. You can also, for existing matters or contracts, you can send over attachments, you can send over emails. I can even just quickly just dump an email in via quick file to matter if I want to. One thing I really want to emphasize with this add-in, notice this kind of aquamarine color LawVu tracks. So thread tracking is a component of this. Again, it works the same in Gmail. Essentially what happens is when I thread track, any reply or forward subsequent from tracking is automatically going to be saved, and it's going to be saved as in one file, but then all of those different replies will be accessible within that one file, and I'll show you what that looks like as well in a few minutes. Now, this, again, just an example of how easy it is to create from another tool. You can obviously create directly in the platform. Now I want to change and also talk about our legal front door, or what we call our business portal. So how you can funnel all of those requests from finance, sales, marketing, etc., into LawVu in one streamlined fashion. It's going to look a lot different than that hub and the internal legal team experience. You need a curated experience for your business users. It needs to be extremely simple to use, and it needs to really speak to the requests that they're making to you. So this is what we call LawVu's business portal. It really is a subset of internal knowledge management. So you as the legal team, you have what I'd call an intranet portal, where you can create articles and you can store documents, you can access your own FAQs, and then what you're essentially going to do is you're going to daylight via an article a homepage. That's going to be this business portal. We work to create this with you. Once it's created, it's very easy for you guys to own it, make changes, iterate on it. In fact, we encourage and expect you to iterate on it, because no one's going to build the perfect business portal overnight, or it's going to be static. You're going to be tweaking to it and adding and removing and so on. As I scroll down, notice we have a few big buttons. Just a general I need help. Big text box can just quickly send just a general request if it doesn't have another home. A contract request, we kind of like to, if clients are interested in the contracts piece, kind of compartmentalize that. Again, they can leverage this as their own knowledge base related to legal and what you want to surface up to them as well. But as I scroll down, the power really is in what we call these banners, and it really is you creating a curated experience. So we have contracts organized first, we have legal requests organized second. You can do this the exact opposite. You can just have legal requests. The idea, though, is what is coming to you, how do you want to essentially have that business user fill out a form, also providing them information so they fill it out correctly, accurately. You're getting the info that you need to go and run with that. When I click on IP related request, notice that we're going to actually have a nesting experience. So from that initial I have an IP request banner, we have trademark request, patent application, licensing, IP dispute. When I click on that trademark request, I'm actually going to get a whole bunch of info first. And then as I scroll down, I'm going to have a trademark clearance initiation or a dispute. That's actually going to lead me to the actual form that I'm going to fill out. Hopefully by providing that knowledge, that curated experience, the person's actually filling this out accurately and providing you as much information as you need so that you're not having to go back and forth with them 10 times in an instant message or an email or a phone call. You actually can kick this off much quicker, much more efficiently from the just general legal perspective. And then the other example that I wanted to show you, contract self-serve is a use case for this. So notice we have a banner that says generate or review a non-disclosure agreement. Again, I'm going to be provided just a general knowledge article about how our company manages NDAs. That's going to lead me to a general self-serve button because this company wants the business users to own, our paper initiated NDAs. So when I click on that button, I'm going to add by wizard. That's document automation that's powered by that wizard so that when I fill out the nuts and bolts of this form, that agreement is automatically initiated and drafted. And I'll show you what that looks like in a second. But then as I scroll down, notice review third party. What are we doing with third party NDA paper, right? So we're also going to have a button, and that's going to be a request. The business isn't going to own that. So that's going to be a request to when the business gets that third party paper, they're going to send it over to legal to review. Not only is part of this to provide an efficiency for you, it's also so that you can report out better and get better data to run some analytics on. So for example, how much third-party paper are we getting and where is it coming from? I hear people that sound like they really know that concretely, but they don't necessarily have the data to back it up. This can help you back it up. Also, you could think of redlining too, have a button for redlines. What redlines are most requested? Could we be providing some better playbooks back to our business so that they could just manage some of the redlines on their own and not send those requests to us?
So I have a quick question.
Yeah.
So a couple of things. Sarah from the chat loves this, thinks it's super cool. And Joe from before said that he loves the list of most recent matters. That's great. So shout out to Joe and Sarah. Ava is chiming in with a question. How flexible are access permissions? Like, is it by person, by project, by transaction, by client? Like, does the business have to be logged in to access this page?
The business will be provided their own license. So they will. We do have single sign-on. Single sign-on is standard with every single one of our implementations. So the idea is that when you have your full implementation, that business user will have that seamless experience to where they're not having to worry about a separate logon. They're just logging in as they normally would within all of your other enterprise applications. But again, they don't get the keys to the kingdom. You have the ability to permission as necessary. You can restrict down matters so where no one else can see them. You can daylight a whole group of matters to the collective legal department if you need to. We try to make sure that we provide a lot of flexibility with respect to the access and the permissions together.
Got it. And I guess would LawVu help create that, environment and, with the logo and the text, right? I'm assuming.
Yeah, no, I think it's really nifty, right? So the idea is that we easily put your logo for your business on here, so it truly is your business portal, and we work with you to build this out. It is simple to build out, and then we give you the keys to the kingdom so that it's easy for you to make changes. You're not having to engage a system architect or somebody to ask, and get in a timeline. You guys have the ability to control it as you see fit. We're always available, though, if you need help on a move forward basis to make changes to as well.
Sam answered the question, but for those who aren't seeing, once the NDAs, I'm sure you're going to show, once the NDA is finalized, can it go straight to e-signature? Sam says yes, so you know it's true. And then do you license by number of users? We're going to talk about pricing and how that all works. Abigail is asking, for a matter that is initiated with an Outlook email, is it possible for the non-legal business contact working on the matter to engage only via Outlook? Does that make sense? That's a question. Yeah, go ahead, Patrick.
Yes, they can. So what I showed you, they can have that experience as well. And I like that you asked that question, because if you're going to spend all the time and effort to build out a business portal, you ideally want to push people to use it. But having a hard and fast rule that nobody can now send you an email and request or leverage Outlook to request is a bit arbitrary. So absolutely, they can leverage Teams, they can leverage that Outlook add-in, and they can deliver that request to you as well.
Awesome. All right, great. Thank you, everybody, for the questions. Keep them coming. Back to you, Patrick.
That was a nice little break. But to that point, though, about the agreement, so within that contract self-serve world, note here, though, this is going to be drafted off your own paper, so you wouldn't necessarily want to route it for approval. That's kind of redundant. Why would you have self-serve? But if you did have an approval process, the button would say send for approval. It doesn't have any approvals on it, though, so we're just going to send it for signing. We do handshakes with Adobe Sign, DocuSign, and Dropbox Sign. So we integrate with those. What happens is when it's fully executed, it'll drop back in. You'll get an email notification saying it's been fully executed, and then you can track your obligations and your expiration dates as well. In general, I'm going to wrap this up real quick because I know we got a lot more to show. The business user gets a static dashboard. You guys have something similar to this, but it's much more configurable. It's much more dynamic. We've iterated on this and learned that if you give places for people to click, they click and they don't know what they do. So you really need it to be simple. It's static. They can do some basic filters, but really, what do they need? They need status updates. They need to track if who's approving whatnot. If it's matter related, they're going to get, am I waiting on anything or anyone related to this matter type of a thing? So just a simple dashboard. They have access to conversations, so they can leverage those and message back and forth with the legal counterpart. What's nice is that to the extent they have access, and they only have access to what you're going to give them access to, or what they initiate as a request, they have the search and the repository capabilities. So any self-serve agreements they spin up, they'll always be able to search them and download that fully executed copy via our search capabilities. Okay, business portal, wonderful asset, but now let's shift and show you more of the actual, in-house playhouse, so to speak. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to come back up, and I'm going to actually go, so let's pretend that I had actually created that matter via Outlook. I created one in Outlook yesterday. So this is how I'm just going to kind of explain foundational matter management and then contract management as well. What we have here is just foundational matter. You're going to default to a details tab that's going to have all your metadata. That's all the data that was in that intake form that you completed. If I scroll down, you also have access to any other additional fields you create. Risk, complexity, even strategic alignment, those are standard LawVu fields. Not something necessarily you'd want to surface up in an intake or create form, probably something that you're going to want to fill in as the life of the matter goes on, or you might change it. That's always going to live in that details section as well. We have an unlimited number of custom fields available in LawVu. So for example, for a complex litigation or mass torts template, you can really build it out to your heart's desire. We mentioned project management. I want to emphasize those tasks. Tasks automatically spun up related to this new hire matter. So the nuts and bolts of onboarding a new employee. You see those tasks here. You can assign those tasks out. If you bring in your outside law firms, you can even tag outside counsel to complete tasks as well. Matters and contracts work together, but I'm going to skip over that right now. Just understand, though, for this use case, remember this was an independent contractor agreement. I could easily spin up that independent contractor agreement, or maybe I want to grab another one that I like better than the business user gave me, and then I could spin that up as a contract, and it would live tethered and linked to that matter. So that's just an example of how matters and contracts work together. Files, so file management. So first off, I want to show you that thread tracking. So notice I have an initial email, and this is very similar to that one that I was showing you all earlier. And then here is that reply. So It all lives within one file, so it's nice and clean. It's not going to be messy with 10 different replies, but all of those replies, if there were 50, you could all access them, download them individually just from this one file that'll live underneath that Files tab. I also have that agreement, that attachment. It will live right here too. Again, I could easily spin this up as a contract. I want to mentioned our native integrations. You can sync with your SharePoint site. You could also sync with Google Drive if you would like to. We talked about access. I'm not going to get into it too much just because we have some other stuff to cover, but just notice you always can come here and see who has access to the matter. You can also restrict down. If you restrict down, the only thing anyone can see, even a system admin, is this alphanumeric identifier. So it really, truly is locked down. I'm going to come back to invoices in a minute. I mentioned those conversations briefly, but we just encourage everyone to use conversations to the extent they can. Number one, because it's a really easy way to interact with those business users, but it's also an easy way to leverage search. So here is our search bar. When I type in lease, I'm going to get the most likely generated search results, organized by matter, organized by contract. So reduce number of clicks. I don't even have to click anywhere else to go grab a matter or a contract if I wanted to search for it. If I go in a little bit deeper dive though, I'm actually searching, let me make this a little bit bigger, through each compartment of LawVu. So notice I can search those conversations. I always like to tell people, you know, our Slack, everything deletes after 5 months. I know most of my colleagues that are using Teams, things can delete daily, every week, you know, every 6 months. With LawVu, you can actually use it as that robust search repository where you can't do that with those other productivity tools that are not designed for it. So that's a really big bonus to this. Also, you can filter. So I actually like to use this example. Let's say I want to look for a consent letter. And then what I can do is I can then filter even down additionally to matter type, and I can even, we have tags, so you can also organize your search content by those tags as well. If I was actually looking through files, you can even then filter down by your actual PDFs. So let's say I just want to look for PDFs. There was that consent letter that I was actually looking for. I uploaded this the other day. So again, the search, the repository, notice also content, we're searching the content of these PDFs as well, you know, not just the header, not just the name. Okay, with respect to that, now what I'd like to do is just quickly show you all a contract. I'm going to come back up here to my hub. The first thing that you're going to notice, the look and feel of this is very similar to that matter. That's the point of this all being built on one platform with all under one underlying IP. You're not having to learn a completely different contract management module. To the extent the look and feel can be the same, that helps for change management and adoption. You're going to have an overview. You're going to have data points related to that contract. You're going to have the agreement itself. Notice we have versioning. We do have a Word add-in. We have surveyed our client population and prospects. Everyone is still pretty much downloading to Word desktop. So we have a plugin, they can go grab things from that Word plugin, that desktop, they can push things back into LawVu as well. We also have Work Share Compare, so you can go grab a couple of those versions, you can compare them, you can resave them as a new version, and that's all within the app. We have approval thresholds, approval structures. We have different stages that you can create approvals at. It's pretty dynamic from how you would like to route things from an approval perspective. We just have one stage here. You can have multiple approvals at different stages, and you can have additional phases. So I could have essentially 3 different levels just within this one approval stage if I wanted to. You can also create automatic dollar thresholds on the back end as well if, for example, only 50,000 above needs to route to the C-suite. We have that files tab, so any other correspondence or ancillary information you can manage around that contract. Key dates, pull in all of your obligations. I'll show you what that looks like in a dashboard in a second. Amendments, you can even have an SOW tab surfaced up as well. I mentioned earlier, seek approval, seek for signature. We have those 3 baked in eSig integrations. The conversations, the search, all works exactly the same.
Actually, Patrick, I'll just step at that. One thing that we
Please.
added on the approval recently is we've got a new iPhone and Android app. One of the big things that keep coming up when speaking with customers is trying to get C-suite approval and trying to get them to log into an app. Painful is probably the nicest word, the one they can say. And so for them, so there's an app there, so that'll pop up with a contract to approve, so they can read through the contract and approve it. And that's actually removed a huge amount of friction getting folks that don't live inside LawVu to actually approve contracts. So that all flows through as well.
Thank you for that Sam. So that was actually a good segue, because what I want to do is go back to this hub. And then as I scroll down, I mentioned these reports, my favorite go-to reports. Let's dive into one. So let's now kind of give you the reporting story. So I'm going to grab my risk list. This is a matters-based report. The way foundational reporting works in LawVu, we call these grid views. You're really able to, you have a default view, and then you can have custom views that you save and you can share out to others within your team as well. But the idea is that you can pull in any sort of standard or custom field. You can filter this any way you want to. What I have done is I have brought in this risk field and I have organized it from highest risk to lowest risk matters. I have the ability to actually edit directly within this view. So instead of going and clicking in each individual matter and then clicking into each individual status update, I can literally just toggle that pencil and I can come in here and I can go ahead and that status has now been updated. And I could literally just go down through the list. You could imagine everyone's on a Zoom for the team, the staff meeting, or everybody's in a conference room, just going around the horn, right? Because maybe those highest risk matters need to be something that the GC needs to report out on the board on. The GC also has this shared. He could bring it up in a board meeting. And one of the things that's so nice is that people really respond to the visual display of LawVu. They really enjoy the intuitiveness and the ease of use. And so we really love to encourage people to, share this stuff. Also, in turn, attorneys like to create their own reports. I used to work in a different world. It was always the legal assistants and the paralegals that would do the reporting. In LawVu, it's been very refreshing to see the attorneys really take that ownership of reporting. But foundationally, this is really how you're going to manage that. I'll note too that you can also export this on demand if you needed to send it to a third party. When I click on the contracts view, again, ease of use, this is going to be a very similar experience, but for the fact I actually have a high-level dashboard that contains all of those obligations that I want to track against each contract, in addition to the expirations as well. So for example, if I come down here, I have that key dates column up in view. If I hover over this, I get those key dates that are relevant to this specific contract. I'm actually showing this view because this is our AI data review. So this is going to be our non-generative AI. This is going to be the key term clause extraction that's powered by Zuva. Zuva is actually the third-party IP from Kira Systems, very well known. But what I can do essentially is I can bring up an agreement. I can control the types of clauses and terms that I would like to surface up, and then I can go and review those. I can then easily cut and paste and then save those as metadata so that they're reportable, so that they're searchable. We're also going to show you a generative AI use case at the very end of this, going to make sure that we have time to show you that as well. But holistically, just works like you would with the matters. You can save all of these, you can share all of these out for foundational reporting purposes. Now, what I'm going to do really quickly, actually, too, because I just wanted to briefly show you spin management. We're going to end on dashboards, and then I'm going to show you that generative AI. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you a matter where we have actually brought in outside counsel. To Sam's point, you don't have to bring them in. They can just perfunctory submit invoices if they want, but you can actually bring them in. They can submit files, you guys can collaborate and share information. You can push out a scoping form to where they could fill out the nuts and bolts of an engagement letter. You could then spin up that engagement letter as an executed agreement against that matter. Budget, PO, conflicts check, fee arrangement, include whatever variables you need to. But then the idea is that, let's say you do set a budget, once invoices start to come in, you really have a nice little dashboard. Again, living within this individual matter, you can also create a report, but you can see the pending spend, you can see it to actual what you've approved. You have access to all of your invoice data. I can edit on a line item basis. I can decline, I can push through to finance. I can even get some data points from my ERP system back into the system as well. Just to quickly show you that spend management use case, you can have those capabilities within LawVu as well. The one other thing I wanted to show you, we took that little side trip to spend management, but I also wanted to show you related to reporting. So foundational reporting were those grid views that I was showing you, how you create foundational reports, but we definitely have dashboards available within LawVu as well. These are powered by Microsoft Power BI, really trying to leverage our relationship with Microsoft. So what we are doing is just daylighting the BI interface within here. We encourage clients, get data in, look at these, evaluate what you see. We also have the capability to, so for instance, if I wanted to see what Jack is actually managing, this would all drill down into just what Jack owns. I can click off of Jack's name, and then it comes back to that full 360 view. What I like, though, from a project management standpoint, is you actually can get task data. And so what's really cool is if you really want to leverage those tasks, and anybody managing their own matters or even external matters as well, they love to spin up tasks, litigation, compliance, you name it, but you're able to get task data as well. We also have a contracts view, so I can get some standard reporting related to my agreements, my contracts. In the vein of this, though, let's say that you want something more beefier. Let's say you want some custom data. We have a service where we can give you access to our data warehouse, so you can pump out data. You can put it in whatever BI visualization you'd like to. We have a full white glove service, so that if you just wanted, us to manage it all via a partner, we have that opportunity as well. But again, there's some definite compelling data just within these standard reports around key dates, around expirations. See what you can get value-wise out of this. All right. Demo almost over, but definitely last but not least, we'd love to show you something that is in beta right now. As Sam, as I get this teed up, maybe if you'd like to kind of take it away on kind of the workspace intelligence prop.
Sure. So obviously AI has become a massive talking point, not just in legal, but in every facet of business lately. So we are very closely aligned with Microsoft. So our whole infrastructure sits on Microsoft Azure, and we've been working with them a lot over the last sort of 12 months or more. We always knew AI was going to become a big part in legal, but we realized that for us, it was just kind of waiting until it was kind of commercially, I suppose, usable through one of the big players. And thankfully, Microsoft has kind of really kind of taken the lead there. The way we look at AI is really like search on steroids. Like, how do you find information that you have inside, more so than focusing on generating clauses and things like that? Like, we've got users with millions and millions of documents and files. So how do you ask natural language questions across those to pull out key info? So Patrick just entered there, show me the 3 confidentiality clauses that we've used in service agreements, and it will go through your information and actually kind of pull those out and then have the citation to the actual document. So if you're working on a contract, that ability to go in there, or you could say, can you give me the last 3 termination clauses we've used? And it's just such a fast way to find and surface information. And that really is the focus that we have at the moment around AI and how we're integrating it into the platform, is really around the ability just for you to delve deep into everything that you have there. So it does become a incredibly useful single source of truth, whether it's something that you worked on or whether it's something the team's on, just the ability to ask natural language questions to surface that information. And so same here with the work vehicle damage policy. You're asking that, it knows that sits inside the intranet that you have there, the kind of the business portal, it pulls it out. You can then click through into the document as well, so you can kind of pull that up. And it's just a very nice experience to actually kind of access that information. So that's in early access for our users at the moment, and it's certainly been incredibly well received.
Awesome. So there's a question in the chat. There's 2 questions in the chat, actually. One about the pricing, right? What does pricing look like in comparison to other similar legal CLM? And second, do you find that this is best utilized for larger in-house legal departments, or can it be pared down for small business, in-house departments with only one GC and they interact with outside counsel? So it took the next questions out of my mouth here.
Yes, so like we've got such a wide range of size of legal teams. We've got legal teams of 1 with legal teams of, I think 450 is the largest legal team that we look after. What I love about it is the fact that everyone has got the same technology stack. Like before, if you're a large team of 450, you had technology that no one in a small legal team could afford. And this has kind of really democratized that. So what scales up the pricing is the size of the legal team, but the technology that you have access to is exactly the same. So if you're a sole GC and you work away and then you leave there and go join a large organization that has LawVu, your experience will be like for like. You don't feel that suddenly you're getting a lesser system because you didn't have the same sort of budget. And so it's been really cool to see that with our users, and just to be able to kind of share that experience, as opposed to saying, oh, you can't kind of afford that because you're a small team. So it does really scale around the size of the legal team.
And then pricing. Do you want to talk about pricing?
Yeah, so like we're pretty comparable to other products out there. Like it's our pricing is very kind of granular when you kind of get into it as to what modules you're taking, how many in the legal team. But those are the biggest drivers really for pricing. The business users that doesn't affect the price that much. They all kind of come in through a different license type. Like our largest organization has 60,000 business users. So they all can authenticate in through single sign-on because you don't want to put any kind of blockers there. Obviously, they're hoping they don't get 60,000 requests through that year, but everyone inside the organization always has access in, and that's twofold because as Patrick showed and highlighted, you really want people to be able to access the portal and that information because that can triage the work and hopefully stop it going through to legal. So if they're able to access the information, we have a lot of clients that have templates or forms that they can download, and they've found that that's had a massive impact on the amount of workload coming through. There's frequently asked questions that used to just suck up time. Suddenly they can access those documents or they can self-serve the NDA. And those are the efficiency gains that really kind of benefit the teams that we work with.
Got it. What about, I guess, just talk about pricing a little bit more. Would it be like talk about modules? I think, right, matter management is a module and contract management is a module, and I guess spend management is a module.
Correct. Yep. So like the majority of our clients come in with matters and contracts as that kind of combined offering, because whether they're a legal team of one or a legal team of 40, that's kind of the core functionality. They may be using another tool for sending work out to external counsel. So for us, it pretty depends on kind of the complexity around that. So if the amount of law firms they're dealing with or the work volume is not super complex, then they may look to migrate off an existing spend management platform and come across to us. It depends kind of who's run that as well. We've seen a lot of times with organizations where the CLM aspect has actually been brought in by procurement. And so they'll come and just use matters, the procurement's put in a contract management system. And so we sit alongside, sometimes we'll sit alongside and legal will actually take our CLM module as well because they want to have access, but they don't necessarily want to become the contract managers. And so that way the contract management piece still kind of sits with procurement, but legal has access and just the reporting capabilities and knowing that the contract's actually in the system, because it's amazing how many teams that we speak to still play that fun game of who has the signed contract. Everyone seems to get excited about signing contracts, and the storage component, becomes a little bit trickier. You try to find that 3 years later.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess people are curious, like, what would the price of a one-person legal team be for those two modules? And people are also asking about, like, if let's say there is a one-person legal team, do they need a license too to engage with the platform?
They don't. Like behind the scenes, it's a license because like it's the way we need to make sure that they can authenticate in, but the business user component, like it doesn't matter if you've got 500 or 1,000, like it's going to be the same there. So it's just from a security perspective that they actually authenticate in, and we work with the IT team internally, so everyone authenticates in through single sign-on. So that whole process becomes very straightforward and streamlined.
Got it. Okay, so it sounds like as long as like the legal department has a license, the whole business can access. It's just,
correct.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
license.
And I think that's probably been one of the biggest shifts over the last 12 to 18 months is the business portal. Like we've had that, and that's been part of LawVu from day one, is engaging with the business. And it's amazing how many legal teams didn't want to implement a front door. They sort of like, oh no, we don't want to make it harder for people to get to engage with us. But that's really shifted over the last year, and a lot of the business users enjoy the process. And it kind of goes back to my story right at the start, is you don't know what you don't know. So like when you landed the business portal, as Patrick explained, like I don't know how to put something up around an IP request, and suddenly, okay, here's the information. So then when I'm sending a request to legal, I'm actually it's so much easier for someone who doesn't normally engage legal to go through the form, or like, do you have this information, this information, this information? And it takes the awkwardness out of like, what do I have to put in this email? Like, is this like, it just streamlines that process. And so what I've actually seen is that there's been almost no pushback from the business. And most of the time they prefer it because it's a much easier way to engage. But again, if they, will you get everyone in to use that? Yes, no. But then some people will still send things through Outlook. And so that way you don't have to say it's an all or nothing kind of approach. It really depends, again, on how you push things through. It's pretty much the same way as any other department operates, be it IT, be it at HR, like everyone has, I think everyone inside the organization is kind of used to using a system to engage with that team now.
I know we're a little bit over time. I have like two more questions. One question about onboarding or implementation. About that, you provide assistance, like, do you have any like kind of metrics on how long it takes? Well, we'll talk about that.
Yeah. So the technical implementation is actually incredibly fast. So you'll be, once you're signed and sealed and you're ready to go, you'll have a kickoff call with the implementation team. A lot of our implementation team in CS are actually recovering lawyers. So they've sat in the seat, they've kind of been there, they've got empathy, they understand the journey. They've also done hundreds of implementations now. And so we bring I suppose a best practice approach. We're able to lean on the team to say, hey, with a team of our size or in our industry, what are things that people have been doing and kind of collecting. So it's more of a consultative approach. The real work goes into is working out like what matter types do you want to have. So when we're working with teams that have never had a system, they've never had to think about the matter types, and then out of those matter types, what data do I want to kind of collect? And that's really where folks will lean on the team here, and you'll have an implementation manager that work through with you on that. You'll be able to get your hands on the product almost from day one, and then we'll kind of work out what's the strategy to launch. Are you kind of launching with just a legal team? Are you going to push something out to the business users early on? And then you'll hand over to our customer success team. So you'll have a customer success manager who will be with you the whole time, and you'll be able to lean on them and ask them questions. We also treat support like a feature. So if you go onto the LawVu website now, you'll see at the bottom a little chat box. If you ask a question there, that will go through to our support team. Normal turnaround time for a request is about just under 60 seconds. So that's 24 hours a day. If you look through any of the reviews around LawVu, you'll see that same thread the whole time. I can't believe how responsive the support team is. So it's an area that we spend a lot of time on. Our team is incredibly highly trained there, and we know how important it is to get an instant response. And so you can test that out in time, but you have that same box when you're actually in the application. So if you're stuck at something, you ask that question, there'll be a few things that will kind of pop up, but you'll have an answer from a real person in a very short space of time.
Does the business, have access to that live chat if they
Yep.
need? Yep. Okay.
They do. It's amazing though how many times we get requests through being like, "Where's my contract?" And we're like, we'd love to help you out here. I think you're gonna have to talk to your legal team. So we're pretty fast to go back, but unfortunately we can't help with your internal legal work. They would love to, but yeah, those then point in the right direction.
Thank you. All right. One more question from the chat. How have other business departments like finance or sales reacted to the tool?
Excellent. Yeah, it's been, I'm gonna say, surprising for a lot of teams that they thought they're going to get more pushback. And I was with a client in Australia recently, and they couldn't believe how smooth the flow went. And I think that's because everyone is used to using a system somewhere else. And then when we can do, it's looking at how do we integrate that in. So you utilize the Power Platform, or if it's in sales, like our own sales team, like we've got integrations with Salesforce to push things down. Again, we're trying to look at like how do we not duplicate work and effort. And I think that's always the hard thing inside any large enterprise is everyone kind of has their own stuff. And it's like, what can we do to minimize that duplication of effort? And we spend a lot of time working with teams on to what can that look like. But it's always been incredibly well received.
Awesome. Great. I guess we'll wrap up there. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Sam and Patrick, for a wonderful program and wonderful demo. It was really interesting to learn your story and how you got to where you are today. And Patrick, great demo. And thank you, everybody, for your wonderful questions and your engagement. If you want to connect with LawVu, please let us know. We'll definitely follow up. And I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of their day or evening, wherever they are, and a wonderful Memorial Day weekend for those who celebrate.